What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another video, and I hope you're doing well. So I recently had the chance to collaborate with composer and fellow YouTuber Ryan Leach on a Disney-style adventure theme. He composed the entire thing, created a piano sketch, and sent it over to me with a MIDI file for me to orchestrate to. Here's a short excerpt of what that sounds like. As you can hear, it's super adventurous, very open, optimistic, and hopeful, and there's also a few modal mixture chords in there to spice it up. I really love how he starts with a nice solid D flat major chord or the tonic chord to establish that home foundation before throwing in a flat 6, or in this case A major, to kind of borrow from the parallel minor, right? And insert some more color in there before resolving back to the tonic where the theme really begins. In measure 6, we get a really beautiful E flat 7 over D flat chord, which is a really beautiful use of two devices in one. Because first of all, we have the D flat pedal point, which is the tonic, right? So we get the tonic pedal to establish that home foundation. But in addition, we get that Lydian sound with that sharp 4, right? Which is G natural. So in that E flat 7 chord, we get E flat, G, B flat, D flat, and that G natural in there is the non-diatonic note, which when brought into the E flat chord and into the key of D flat major, it just sounds even happier, even more hopeful and open compared to just using something like a minor 2, right? Like a E flat minor 7 chord. Right after that, in measure 7, we get a beautiful minor 4 chord resolving back to the 1 chord. So Ryan notated it as E flat minor 7 over D flat, which is definitely possible. I prefer to think of it as a G flat minor chord. So kind of going from the major 4, G flat to G flat minor back to the 1 chord. So you get that really beautiful voice leading of B flat, B double flat, or A natural, then down to A flat. And that voice leading is done so well, especially if you orchestrate it out, you can really assign that one chromatic line to a certain instrument, and it sounds so smooth. I also really like how Ryan transitioned to A flat major, or the dominant key, using an extended authentic cadence. So in bar 12 and 13, you can see how he extends that 5 chord by outlining the E flat on the very bottom. And then in bar 14, we get that ostinato starting and playing over and over. So that signifies this transition to the dominant key. And then in bar 16, we get this beautiful major 4 to minor 4 back to 1 device used again. And so you can see there, that's like D flat major to D flat minor, then back to the tonic key. And it's really beautiful because we used it already in bar 7, so the ear is kind of already adjusted to that kind of device. The next section is fully committed to A flat major. So all the way from bar 22 to around bar 30, we have this beautiful passage where we have the main theme, but this time in A flat major, of course. And as a result, I also wanted to orchestrate that a little bit differently, which I'll show you in the final result. But we have this extended dominant chord again from bars 28 to 30 with the extended E flat on the very bottom. And then at the very end of the page, we get this D major chord, which is kind of like the sharp 4 or the tritone away from the tonic. So we get a D major chord. We follow that up with an E major chord, right? So that's like sharp 5. And then we have F major, then G major, which is flat 6, flat 7, and then we finally resolve to A major. So you could say that this A major ending actually started back when that D major chord hit, because D major is really nowhere to be found in the key of A flat, right? But if you think in context of A major, I guess maybe Ryan worked backwards and decided, oh, I actually want to ascend up to this A major finale from the 4 chord, then the 5 chord, and instead of resolving straight to A major, which would be 4, 5, 1, he wanted to extend that with a little bit of an extended cadence. So like flat 6 to flat 7 to 1, which is super common when it comes to video game music, namely Nintendo music, Mario Galaxy music, and so on and so forth. So lots of modal mixture happening in here. Minor 4s, flat 6s, flat 7s, modulations going from D flat to A flat, then finally to A major. Just a really beautiful composition all around. I wanted to get into Ryan's head a little bit to kind of understand how he approached this theme and adventure music in general.
Telling a complete story in the short time was one of the main goals, because it had to be a exciting, adventurous, full piece within a very short constraint. So it had to be able to fit a lot of music in a short amount of time. So I consciously knew I needed to have some ups and some downs and lefts and rights, even though there's, it doesn't go to too many extremes. I did try to keep it fast and moving like that. Because of the very short time limit, very intentionally kept the motivic material limited, so that there's really kind of one theme that goes through 2 or 3 expressions. Because I think if you introduce contrasting themes and contrasting ideas, you're introducing kind of like a villain in a story that now we need to have the confrontation, or at least have each of those stories play out. Even if they don't ever hit each other, it's just they each get their own story.
Right.
Or I guess a better way to put it is each motive, each theme deserves its own treatment. So every time you add one, you're increasing the scope and the length of the piece. So in order to keep it confined to only 60 seconds, I very intentionally was just like, this is the lick, and we're going to use that throughout.
So as Ryan shared, he wanted to make sure that we experienced an entire journey from start to finish just by using one simple motif and then building off of it. It was also really interesting to hear how he approaches composition in general, usually by determining a structure first and by following his musical instincts, rather than relying on rules and theory to guide the composition along.
I think I mostly lean towards some sort of ABA. For film and video game material that's less than 3 or 4 minutes long, especially. Like if I was going to do a 15-minute piece, that would become a whole other monster, I think. But again, I think the constraint of the time spoke to me that like, okay, we don't have, again, like development is not really something we're going to get too far into. So, I think ABA was in the back of my mind as a shortcut. In a way, it's reliable. ABA works, so it's like
all the time.
I think some people fight what works sometimes. I do not fight what works. I try to be like, what did everyone else do that worked? Right. Okay, I'm gonna do that too. A little bit. I guess I don't focus too much on trying to be too unique in my writing. I just try to write what I like, and then I think my stuff tends to all sound like me or sound like my thing, and that's fine. Which came more when I relaxed and stopped trying.
He also touched on the concept of chromatic mediants, which he actually used in this theme specifically. The theme is in D flat major, and at the midway point, he actually used an E major chord to spice it up, and that's actually a minor third away, right? Or you could technically say an augmented second if you want to be super technical about it, but it sounds awesome.
So many years ago, I took this workshop with this guy, Scott Smalley. It was an orchestration workshop. But one of the main things I remember was not an orchestration thing, but was the idea of the triads third apart, roots third apart, and that whole film score sound that you get when you have like a C major to an A flat major, or a C major to E flat major, or something like that. And the thing I remember though is this idea that a major chord from outside your key feels more major. And I've said this on my channel all the time. And a minor chord from outside your key feels more minor, which by more major, more minor, we mean kind of the cliche qualities of like happy and bright or dark and sad. So if you're in C major and you play an A flat major chord, it feels very positive and warm because there's this extra major quality to it that doesn't quite belong. So if I'm writing an adventure, happy Disney type of piece, I'm going to lean towards those major chords from outside D flat that we were in here. So I have an E major chord. So I have the flat 3 there, the flat 6. There's a couple of different chords that I'm using. These major chords very intentionally from the mode mixture are the ones I'm using to keep everybody happy all the time.
Ryan also shared some general tips on how to write adventure style themes, as well as preparing yourself for a quick workflow and seamless writing sessions.
Something I really like to do is try to make as many decisions as I can before I write any notes. So if I already know that I'm writing kind of Disney parade happy thing, I'm going to make notes about that and think about what that means musically without any pitches. So that means probably a pretty fast tempo, medium fast to fast tempo, major key, some of the things that seem obvious, but just get them down, make those decisions so you don't have to. D flat, I don't have perfect pitch, so I don't have like an actual meaning, but to me, D flat is just a very warm key.
It feels good.
I don't know why. It feels, so there's just, I don't know. I think that's where I leaned on that. It was just like that feels warm and positive. Kind of, there's like a pinkish color to it. I don't know. But anyway, so I choose a key and it's going to be major, and I choose a tempo, and I think I chose 4/4 because I knew it was steady. It could have been 2/4 like a march, but that wasn't quite what this went into. This wasn't quite a march. So 4/4 made comfortable, safe sense. All those decisions I'm making before I write a note, and then the rest of it is kind of within that frame. Then it's like, okay,
gotcha.
What am I making? Oh yeah, I'm making this. Easy. Great. Then the next step is to come up with a basic idea. What's the main lick? Usually 2 bars, the main motive, the main kind of meat of it. And I think for this one, I was intentionally going for a big leap in the very first moment of the gesture, because that's very wide and expressive. And, we're looking for big and happy. Kind of philosophically, I don't think the main idea matters that much as what you do with it, or at least that you keep it consistent and kind of familiar. But you still want to try to use what you can. So big leaps and lots of breath and space. You might as well use that stuff if it works.
One thing I was really glad Ryan mentioned was embracing simplicity. So in terms of like structure, choosing a form like ABA works beautifully. We really don't need to overcomplicate our pieces, right? Because the whole point of music is to tell a story and make the listener feel something, rather than, trying to overcomplicate our music and adding in a bunch of musical devices that people just don't understand. So you might be wondering what the final thing actually sounds like. Let me play it for you, and then I'll go through how I actually orchestrated it. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed it. The art of orchestration is something that you just develop over time with a lot of listening and just a lot of practice. If you want a shortcut and dive into my personal orchestration process, then I'd highly recommend downloading my free Orchestration Essentials guide below. It basically walks through the 5 most critical steps you need to go from initial idea to completed orchestration. In addition, if you want to see how I actually orchestrated this piece specifically, then head on over to Ryan's channel, where we actually did a collaboration there as well. And I kind of explained my personal process, how I kind of decide which instruments to put where, how do you decide like counter melodies and things like that, and just how to actually understand the orchestra better as a whole. Definitely subscribe to Ryan because he's doing some wonderful things and he's got some great videos on video game scores and composition in general, so you definitely don't want to miss those. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.